If you're looking for a minimalist gear setup for bike touring or hill walking or adventuring of some sort, then you've come to the right place, because I'm going to go through a really simple list of things that I took on my trip, what worked for me, what didn't, a couple things I wish I'd had, but really just a simple approach to filming that won't take up too much space or your time either. Welcome back to YAM'S World. I'm glad you're here. Now, before I get into it, if you haven't seen my last video, I kind of went into the sort of reasons why you might not want to go over the top when you're filming if you're going on an adventure or like a trip or a bike tour. I'm mainly referencing it from bike touring perspective, but I think it applies in most sort of expedition type things. But if you haven't watched that, go and watch it, then come back and I'll go through my list. At the end of this, if you've got any suggestions about your own setup or you've got any questions about this one, leave me a comment and also a like if you liked the video, and let's just get into it. Right, the main thing you're going to need is a camera. I realise that's so obvious, but I think there is a distinction to be made that you want something that's separate from your phone. You want something that's dedicated to taking photos and videos. And I think the best approach is a small compact camera like the one I'm using and the one I'm recording on now, which is a Sony Rx100 Mark I. Now this is the camera I took on our 2017 trip up the Scottish Outer Hebrides, and then also on the big trip as well. It's the 2012 Mark I model. It's the first of that one. I got it in 2017, so it was pretty cheap, I think. I think it was maybe like a couple £100. That's come down from probably, I think, in excess of like £650-ish when it first came out. That might be a little bit off depending, but it's an old model, 2012, but when it came out, it was like top of the range. So the quality and the settings on it are actually still really good, and I think still hold up absolutely fine today. I would 100% still take this camera on most trips I would go on. I don't think I'll be replacing it anytime soon. Now, of course, it is a slightly older model, so you can probably get some of the later versions much cheaper as well on eBay or secondhand, or even new as well. There's 7 new models, I think. So it goes up to the Mark 7, and I think that one costs like £1,000 now. So I definitely, unless you've got £1,000 to just blow on a compact camera, I think you're better off looking for an older version and a secondhand one if you can get it. So I used this one for most of the kind of scenery stuff. Any times I was like holding the camera while cycling, I did that a little bit. Filming dogs, I mean, that is what I mainly take videos of. And filming food, filming us, taking photos, all that kind of stuff. This was the main one I used most of the time. It was easily accessible, so I just had it on a front pouch, which I'll go into in a second. I do think it is really important to distinguish having that from your phone, because even the modern phones you've got now, this Samsung S9 is really good, takes nice videos and photos, but I do think that the quality on the Sony Rx100 is much better. It just has a much nicer quality to it. I mean, megapixels, I've got no idea about all that kind of stuff in the settings and things. I just think that the images that came out of the Sony Rx100 are better than the ones that come off my phone, 100%. A key thing for me about this camera is it's very small and very sturdy. It survived a 2-week trip in the Scottish summer where it was raining all the time, and it didn't get wrecked by that. And it also survived 6 months in pannier bags and getting tossed about all over the place with no damage at all, basically. Obviously, if you just drop it on the ground, you're probably going to break it, but it's definitely proved its worth and survived some not very good conditions for keeping a camera in. Now, in terms of the settings, I mainly kept it in super auto mode. I do think that does a really good job. It's also got lots of manual options, so if you do prefer to set your own shutter speed and aperture and also change that within the video settings as well, you can. But for me, it just was never really much of a necessity. I'd like to be able to just take it out, press record and not have to think about it and just keep it roughly in focus all the time. It does also have pretty good tracking for focus too, so if you're filming like I am right now, where it's just on me, if I move about, it's keeping track. The battery life on it as well is pretty amazing. I mean, I don't think I ran out of battery in any sort of situation where I was like, oh no, I ran out of battery. Now, I was able to keep things charged most of the time, but I took 2 extra batteries with me and I don't think I used them once. I maybe just swapped them over at one point, but it was never really a necessity. So this camera does go the distance in terms of battery life. Always worth having a couple of extra ones, but not something I actually had to worry about at all with this one. So that's good. That's definitely a good thing, because charging is a pain in the arse sometimes on the road. A key thing for me with this one is that it shoots at 50 frames per second in video. That means when it comes to editing, you can put your sequence in 25 frames per second. None of this 29.99 or 30 or 60. You're in the UK, you use 25 frames per second, all right? Don't let anyone else tell you a different way of doing it. 25. But yeah, 50 frames per second means that you can make it look slow-mo super easily, and it actually looks pretty great. I was very, very satisfied with how the shots that I wanted to make look slow and cool, actually how they turned out. It was really good. So yeah, 50 frames per second shooting is all you really need. I'm sure the later models maybe have even higher settings for frames per second, but this definitely worked for me and I wouldn't require anything else, I don't think. Of course, there are some downsides with this camera. This model in particular doesn't have a flip out camera. That isn't a big deal for me, but it is sometimes good to be able to just sort of make sure that you're going to be in shot. Like right now I'm filming and I've got a mirror behind the camera so that I can just check that I'm actually in frame. But most of the time holding it out, I think I didn't have any sort of particularly bad things where I was out of focus or out of frame. It did a really good job of that. And I don't think you really need a flip out screen. It's usually just more distracting than anything. So yeah, that is a slight downside. It might be a deal breaker for some people, but I'm pretty sure that the newer models do have a flippy screen thing that you can do like you get in other cameras now. I also don't like the format that it stores the videos. It creates this AVHD, which is like a Sony thing. I'm used to mainly using Canon cameras, so I wasn't sure what the hell that was. I don't particularly like it because it makes it more awkward to access the files easily, and you have to take a couple of extra steps to get the files into like a more normal format that you would put into editing software, or even just for viewing and stuff. I think it's a bit unnecessary, but that is just what Sony uses, at least in this series of cameras. The menu system itself is a bit clunky, quite slow. Again, that might just be because this camera is now 8 years old that I find that, but definitely wish it was a bit faster. Also, annoyingly, when you are taking photos and then taking videos, whatever you go to view in the gallery will show you what you did last. So if you just took a video, it'll show you videos. If you just took a photo, it'll show you photos, which means that it's quite difficult to review footage and stuff like that easily between photos and videos. You have to like switch between it, and it's not very quick to do that. Again, it's not that big a deal, but it is something that I wish wasn't the case. So all in all, definitely recommend a little small compact camera like this one. I do think this is a great piece of kit just in general to have. I would 100% recommend it. Okay, so you might be tempted to get yourself the biggest memory card you can, big old SD card. I mean, they do get cheaper and bigger all the time. However, I would definitely recommend taking lots of smaller cards. So you can see here, I mainly took 32 gigabyte cards and 16 gigabyte ones. And I think I took about 5 or 6 of those. I'm not sure what the sort of total was. I mean, I knew I could buy more on the road if I really needed it, but taking more smaller cards is a better approach, because if a card gets corrupted, if your camera gets stolen, you lose it, anything like that, it means that you've got a better chance that it will only happen to one card, and you'll still be able to record with the other things or save the other footage you've got too. So it's just a safer way to do it. Of course, when it comes to storage, as you maybe just saw, I took these little cases. I had 2, so one was for fresh SD cards and one was for full ones. And I actually put my address on the back of it and just a note saying something like, please give me back my cards if you find it, because it's from a trip and I'll be really sad without it. If you've got a camera bag thing, it's also good to keep a box with the full cards separate as well. It just means that it's slightly safer if the whole bag gets stolen or something like that. But yeah, these are really good because it just keeps them nice and waterproof and safe and kept away, and also just means that you're less likely to lose it as well. So yeah, lots of cards and a little case like this. You're probably thinking, why can't I just take a phone with me? And I think that you should have a phone with you, but your phone is also going to be necessary for like navigation or other things or messages or whatever. So we both had our iPhone 5Ss at the time. These were kind of old phones, even for when we went on the trip. But you know, the point is not so much the quality of it and stuff. I mainly took photos and videos at the same time as when using the other camera, so that I had something to post on Instagram or to send to family. I actually used Instagram more as a way to keep in touch with people, to make sure that they knew that we were still alive and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff, being alive. Don't want to be in a situation where you don't want to take a photo of something because you're saving battery life. Also, if you're using an iPhone, you can just sub in micro SD cards like you can with other Android phones as well. So it is tempting to just use your phone when you're on a trip because the quality is so good, but I do think having that separation is a good thing. Also, just generally taking footage and photos off your phone onto a computer, I just always think it's a pain in the arse. I don't know why. I just find it to be awkward, especially if you're going from Android to Apple, or everything gets stuck on iCloud. I hate iCloud. I don't know how it works. It just doesn't work properly. Anyway, moving on. So, extra, you're gonna want a little carry case. It's super useful. It just means you can put all the stuff you need into it. It's more about keeping it all in one place that's really accessible and you can just grab out. Say you're in a more sketchy place, you want to make sure your stuff's all safe. Take this with you, and inside it you can store extra batteries, your memory cards, a little cloth to clean your lens and that kind of thing, because you know, beaches can cause trouble. And yeah, I actually also had a smaller, sort of more lightweight version of this, which is again for cleaning dust and sand off your gear. Not really necessary, but the one I had folded down really small and I could actually just like squeeze it into one of these pockets. So yeah, pretty useful. I don't think it's essential to have a case, but it helped me keep things a bit tidier and stuff in my bags, and it meant that there wasn't just an explosion of gear and cables all over your bike panniers. I also had this little thing which sat on top of the main bike bar. It was pretty good actually. It's like a little Topeak one, and I could put the camera just in there, and it meant that when I was cycling it was easy for me to get it out. That was the main thing. So I could put Haribo in this pocket and then the camera in this pocket, and that was good enough for me. I think I actually left the camera in this overnight a couple of times. Not recommended, but yeah, a nice little bag on top of your bike that's easy. Some people might take a handlebar bag. Now, I couldn't fit a handlebar bag onto my bike just because of the way I've got my brakes and stuff, but yeah, something basically that is very accessible for your camera is going to be good, just so you can whack it out and shoot wherever you want. Charging, everyone's favorite topic. Is it? All this gear is going to need power of some sort. I had this incredibly heavy power bank. It's actually really good though. There's probably newer models that are smaller and hopefully more lightweight, but yeah, this Anker one did the business for us. I had a couple of extra little smaller ones as well, which just provided backups and stuff and were pretty lightweight. I just chucked them in. They were so old, I just thought, why not? But I ended up using them quite a lot. Something like this is going to mean that you can charge your phone and your camera. I like it because it's got 2 USB ports as well, which means that you can charge both your phones if you're traveling on a couple, that is. But you can charge more than one thing at once, basically. You can charge more than one thing at once. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Now, for a minimalist gear video, you might be wondering, why is he suggesting a solar panel? But this actually was really, really handy to have. It meant that we could charge stuff on the road for free, using the power of the sun. It's kind of chunky, right? But basically you can just tie it to the back of your panniers and put it out in the sun and it will charge your stuff. I was so skeptical of it, whether it would actually work, because the idea of charging stuff with the sun living in Scotland just seems like such a different world to live in. However, summer, cycling through Europe, it actually worked. And I think it was really rare during the whole trip that we had any points where we like ran out of battery completely and didn't have any backup. So a big part of it was having the solar panel. So you might not include a solar panel on a minimalist gear setup, but I would. and I would recommend that you do too. This is like an absolute lifesaver. It's just a plug, but it's got 4 USB slots on it. The amount of times I was in a campsite and it maybe only had like a couple of sockets, you can just plug this in and charge everything you need at once. So handy. It was such a good thing, and I still use it all the time. I was pretty satisfied with the gear list that we took. If there was an extra thing I could take, maybe just like a little tripod. I think I had the little GorillaPod one, but it broke on the road. I would like to have had that just because it's easier to set down the camera somewhere, or for taking like timer photos and stuff. We didn't have a lot of opportunity to take photos of ourselves together unless it was like a big selfie. But yeah, that's always a handy thing to have. A mic maybe. I mean, I've got this one now, which I use. I would probably take this with me because it's really easy to use, but actually on a big long trip, having a microphone, probably not that useful. Actually, the mic in your phone and the Rx100 is pretty good. I mean, in Scotland, it's so windy all the time that vlogging is kind of pointless unless you've got a mic, but actually most of the time, any talking to camera parts I had on the trip worked out pretty well. Okay, like there was some windy stuff as well, but I think I just would have hesitated to do more recording to cameras because I'd be like, oh, I need to get the mic out and set that up. So even though it's a nice thing to have, I've changed my mind. I don't wish I had it. I'm very satisfied with what we did take. I was worried as well at the beginning that I should have taken the DSLR, but again, it's just like, it's a big chunky thing. This is not the biggest DSLR, I suppose, and I could have taken like a smaller lens on it, but it's not even so much the weight, it's just the bulk factor, and you can't fit this into like a little handlebar thing as easily. Maybe if you had a handlebar bag, then this kind of thing is more of an option, but certainly for me, the Rx100 takes great photos and videos, and this just wasn't a necessity at all. So again, no regrets not taking this. Of course, I do wish I'd taken a drone with me. I know I've been sort of saying about how I hate drones and stuff. I don't hate them. I think that they're like really cool. I just get really annoyed about how noisy they are when you're up on like a mountain peak, you know, you hear zzz. But yeah, for me, it's just too much of a hassle, and I'd be worried about it as well, braking and things. So, but you cannot deny you do get some pretty cool shots with them. But for a casual minimalist thing, definitely don't want a drone. Solar panel, yes. Drone, no. No. Okay, so that is the sort of full rundown of the gear list that I took with us that I was pretty satisfied with. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this and you got something out of it. I'll put all the links to the kit I took in the description. If you've got any questions about it, make sure you leave me a comment, and I look forward to hearing about your setup. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it, and if you haven't subscribed yet, then why not?